Hey guys, tonight we're heading straight into the dust, sweat, and iron-scented world of ancient Rome's least enviable job, Gladiator. You probably think you've had a bad boss or a rough shift, but trust me, you wouldn't survive this. Because your new job starts in chains. Not metaphorical ones. Actual, clanking iron ones, rubbing the skin raw around your wrists as you stumble off a wagon in the heat of the Roman sun. The auction block is loud, crowded, and somehow smells like both fig paste and panic. You're barefoot. Your hair's been shaved into an uneven fringe. Your dignity is, well, it stayed behind 2 provinces ago. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from, and what time it is, sunrise, starlight, or somewhere in between. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. They line you up beside other unfortunate souls, prisoners of war, debtors, criminals, a few who just looked at the wrong patrician sideways. A man with a big scroll and bigger eyebrows begins shouting out your age, height, teeth count, and general ability to swing his sword without dying. You're poked, prodded, and inspected like a suspicious melon. When a wealthy lanista, that's a gladiator trainer, nods your way, the deal is done. You've been sold. You don't get a name anymore. Just a new label, novitius, the lowest of the low. A rookie. Your journey to the ludus, or training school, is bumpy, dusty, and filled with ominous silence. The city fades. The countryside stretches wide and golden. Eventually, stone walls loom ahead, your new home. Or cage, depending on your optimism levels. Inside the ludus, you're given your new uniform. A simple tunic, stiff sandals, and a thick leather belt that rubs like sandpaper. You're also given rules. Many, many rules. Rule number 1, don't run. Rule number 2, don't speak unless spoken to. Rule number 3, survive. The doctors or instructors watch you with the cold-eyed stare of someone who's buried more trainees than they can count. One of them, a square-shouldered brute with a nose like a squashed fig, calls you goat boy. You don't ask why. You just nod. Your cell is small and windowless. You sleep on a straw mat next to a man with a tattoo of a lion on his throat and a snore that could rattle columns. Your nights are filled with the sound of men whispering about old fights, new enemies, and how to fake a convincing limp on inspection day. No one talks about freedom. Not really. Not unless they're drunk on stolen wine or bleeding out from training accident. And yes, those happen often. The school isn't like a gym. It's a boot camp wrapped in desperation. You rise before dawn. You shovel bread and bean mash into your mouth like it's a timed event. Then, with your stomach still sloshing, you're marched out to the palestra, the open-air training ground. There's sand underfoot, stone walls all around, and weapons as far as the eye can see. Some are wooden for practice. Others are real. Very real. You pray they keep you on the fake ones for a while longer. The morning drills begin. They teach you how to hold a gladius without looking like you're about to drop it. They teach you how to take a punch, how to roll when shoved, and how not to scream when your shoulder dislocates. You get blisters. Then the blisters blister. Your thighs ache. Your palms bleed. Your back becomes a battlefield of bruises, each one named after a mistake. By the 3rd day, you already know the Lanista's favorite insult and the exact pattern of mold on the cell ceiling. You've seen 2 men collapse from heat and exhaustion. One doesn't get up. They drag him out with little ceremony. Better now than later, someone mutters. Historians still argue whether most gladiators volunteered or were forced. Some did sign up willingly, drawn by promises of glory, food, or a clean bed. But for the average guy, like you, there was no choice. Just the steady rhythm of the training sticks and the deep, growing ache in your ribs. You start to learn the names of the weapons. Gladius, short sword. Trident, obvious. Sicca, that nasty curved blade that likes to find ribs. You'll be matched with one eventually, assigned a combat type based on your size, build, and general survivability. Think of it like being cast in a very violent stage play. One man, older than the rest, limps through the yard, muttering about his time as a retiarius, a net and trident fighter. Too much dancing, he grumbles. Not enough stabbing. That night, you try to sleep, but the straw digs into your neck and your stomach makes a noise like a dying goat. You dream of home, or at least you try. The snores of the lion throat man are louder than your nostalgia. And just before you drift off, you remember something the Lannistus said earlier. You're not a man now. You're an investment. The worst part? He wasn't even yelling when he said it. Your second week begins before the sun even clears the rooftops. The cell doors creak open, and the smell of boiled barley hits you like a philosophical question. How could something smell both bland and vaguely tragic? You scarf it down anyway. Fuel is fuel, and today, you'll need every scrap of it. Because today is evaluation day. This is the moment where the doctors decide what type of fighter you'll be. You thought the worst part was getting sold into this mess? Nope. It's realizing that your entire future depends on how impressively you fall in the sand while a man named Spurious pokes at you with a stick. First up, armor check. You're handed a heavy, dented helmet with a narrow eye slit and no padding. It smells like dried sweat and wet bronze. You put it on. Now you can't see, can't hear, and you've started sweating in your eyebrows. Fantastic. Then comes the shield. It's taller than your torso and weighs approximately 1 medium donkey. You try to lift it, but it catches your hip and nearly tips you over. Someone behind you snickers. You do not appreciate it. The instructor, arms folded and unimpressed, mumbles something about you being a secutor, the chaser type. Big shield, short sword, heavy armor, built for close, grinding combat. Great. You were hoping for a net, maybe even a trident, something with flair. But no, apparently you give off human battering ram energy. The only good news? The secutor gets a decent breastplate. The bad news? It's so tight you may never breathe deeply again. The drills today are cruelly specific. You're made to charge forward, pivot, and block in one motion again and again, while the doctors shout things like again, but less like a goat falling over. You're beginning to suspect goats are their only metaphor. You're paired with a Reedy Areas trainee, a net fighter who moves like he's been dipped in oil and given coffee. He dances circles around you, throwing feints and grinning through missing teeth. Your sword scrapes air. His net smacks your shoulder. You grunt, sweat, and finally land a glancing blow to his thigh. He yells. You apologize. Don't say sorry, growls Spurious. Say again. So you say it. Again, and again, and again. Later, during a break, you sit with the other trainees beneath a patch of shade that smells like despair and boiled wool. One man, wiry and quiet, shows you a scar that snakes across his ribs. Practice accident, he says. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Technically. Another guy swears he once trained with a real centurion. He says it like it's a flex. You pretend to care. Your shoulders are too sore for sarcasm. Here's something weird. The doctors know what they're doing. They're brutal, yes, but precise. One catches you swinging too wide and corrects your grip with a single word. You try it again. It feels, right? You hate it, because now you're not just surviving. You're learning, and that makes it harder. Historians still argue whether gladiator training was more theatrical than practical. Was it all for show, or were these guys truly elite fighters? Based on the way your arms shake by sunset, you're leaning toward elite. By the end of the day, you've got a new nickname, Stumbler, and a fresh set of bruises in places you didn't know had names. You're covered in sand, oil, and what might be someone else's blood. You smell like raw onions and unfulfilled ambition. And somehow, despite everything, you walk back to your cell a little straighter. The Lannistus stands by the gate, arms crossed, watching. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't frown either. You count that as a win. Dinner is lentils and sadness. You eat both quickly. Your hands shake when you lift the bowl. Not from fear, just exhaustion. Bone deep, nerve-wracking, body wants to evacuate exhaustion. Across the room, someone starts singing. It's a low, off-key hum that morphs into a half-forgotten lullaby. Someone else joins in. Then a third. You don't know the words, but you close your eyes and let the sound fill the cracks in your resolve. Tomorrow will be worse. But you made it through today. And in the ludus, that's enough. You wake to the sound of metal on bone. Not a metaphor. It's the clatter of wooden practice swords. asterisk rudis asterisk, colliding against shields, helmets, and occasionally shins. Someone yelps. Someone else laughs. A third person coughs with alarming commitment. The sun hasn't even broken over the city wall, but the ludus is already a chorus of grunts, groans, and the steady beat of discipline. You stretch. Every joint files a complaint. Today is your first proper combat rotation. No instructors stepping in. No slow motion drills. Real speed. Real sweat. Still no real swords, but the stakes feel higher anyway. Your partner is a murmillo, tall, broad, with a helmet shaped like a fish's face and a sword arm like a battering ram. You, still a low-tier secutor, get to square off against him while wearing a helmet that makes everything echo. A sneeze sounds like thunder. A heartbeat feels like battle drums. You circle each other. He lunges. You deflect. He feints left, then spins. You eat the flat of his blade, right in the ribs. You wheeze. He winks. Keep your shield higher, someone shouts. It might be spurious, but at this point, everyone sounds like spurious. The match goes 5 full rotations. At the end, both of you are dripping, panting, slightly bleeding from somewhere unimportant. You shake hands, or rather, you try to. His gloves are coated in oil and grit. It's like shaking a raw fish. Then it's on to the next drill, formation fighting. Yes, sometimes gladiators fought in pairs or teams, especially in venations or animal hunts, where coordination mattered more than flair. You line up beside 3 other trainees and prepare to face a fake lion, a guy wearing a mangy pelt and a smug grin. He growls. Someone giggles. Then he charges. You thrust your rudis forward, brace your shield, and suddenly it's all legs and roars and the snap of contact. The fake lion hits your line hard, pushing you back a step, but only one step. Not bad. One guy drops his sword. Another nearly falls. But you hold. You're not good. Not yet. But you're getting harder to kill. After the session, you're herded back to the shade, where someone tosses you a water skin that smells faintly of vinegar. You drink anyway. Overhead, gulls circle. Somewhere beyond the training yard, Rome is waking. Bakers firing ovens, senators practicing speeches, slaves sweeping marble courtyards. But here, inside the stone walls of the ludus, your world is limited to sand, sweat, and strategy. A boy named Tullus, maybe 14, plops down beside you. His tunic's too big. His knees are scabbed, but he grins like he owns the place. 2 days, he says. Then we watch the veterans. You blink. We get a break. He laughs. No, we get a lesson. Turns out, watching seasoned gladiators fight is a mandatory part of your training. Observation is education. Or humiliation. Depends on the match. Historians still argue whether these mock battles were truly educational or just entertainment for the trainers. One surviving text suggests the veterans enjoyed showing off. Lessons sprinkled with taunts like gladiatorial TED Talks. Another claims it was meant to instill humility through witnessing excellence. You're expecting both. Later, you're handed your first set of leather greaves. They smell like goat. They fit like regret. But they're yours. Kind of. You spend the afternoon practicing parries against a straw dummy that's seen better centuries. Someone has painted a crude face on it. Big eyes, crooked teeth. You name it Gaius and whisper threats to keep things interesting. Strike. Block. Step. Strike again. Sweat drips from your chin like a slow leak. Someone passes behind you, muttering, "That dummy's beaten more men than Julius Caesar." You ignore it. Gaius deserves respect. By evening, the yard quiets. Muscles twitch. Fingers cramp. You rest against the wall, breathing like a bellows, staring at the dust-colored sky. Somewhere nearby, a lute plays. Off-key but sincere. The smell of dinner wafts in, boiled grains, cabbage, maybe a hint of garlic if someone made a friend in the kitchen. You're starving. Tullus jogs past, waving a chunk of bread. "Better hurry," he says. It goes fast. You limp toward the mess hall, heart pounding, stomach louder than the lute. Your arms feel like driftwood, your legs like stones. But your footing's steadier now. Your swings are sharper. You're still alive. Which means, in the twisted logic of the ludus, you're doing just fine. The food is not amazing, You expected that. What you didn't expect was how grateful you'd be for a bowl of boiled barley mush and half a salted figure. Hunger does that. It lowers your standards with ruthless efficiency. You sit cross-legged on the dusty floor beside a dozen other trainees, all scooping grains into their mouths with chipped wooden spoons like it's a competition. And in a way, it is. Whoever eats fastest gets seconds. Maybe. The air smells of stale sweat, cabbage, and crushed mint leave someone scattered near the doorway to keep flies away. It doesn't work. A grizzled man named Dinner, named for the missing front tooth he refuses to replace, slaps the wall beside you with a meaty hand. Eat, sleep, swing. That's the rhythm. He grunts. Forget the rest, or it'll kill you. You nod. You're learning quickly that wisdom in the ludus is always delivered with a side of menace. Dinner fought in the arena for 6 years. That makes him a legend here. Most don't last, too. You scrape your bowl clean and lean back against the wall. It's barely evening, but your whole body aches with a bone-deep exhaustion that makes sleep the most attractive idea you've ever had. Except you don't get to sleep yet. Baths, someone calls. Right? Communal baths. Another feature of gladiator life you hadn't prepared for. There's no privacy, no modesty. Just a long rectangular pool fed by an aqueduct and heated by a hypocaust, a kind of Roman underfloor furnace. It's genius. It's hot. It smells like wet limestone and feet. You strip. You soak. You try not to stare. The water is cloudy from earlier shifts, and a thin film of oil dances on the surface. You watch as Tullus dives in at the far end, resurfacing like a particularly cheerful frog. Someone throws a sponge at him. It hits another trainee instead. Laughter. A splash. The beginnings of camaraderie. Maybe this is where the politics of the ludus start to show. Who shares soap? Who gets the bench near the brazier? Who guards their tunic like it's gold? You learn to read the room, to spot tension, to nod when it's safer than speaking, to avoid the guys with knife scars above the knee. That means they've seen real combat, and they have nothing left to prove. You dry off, dress, and make your way to the dormitory, a stone room with rows of low pallets and straw-stuffed mattresses. The snoring starts almost immediately. You lie down. The straw pokes through the linen. Someone nearby mutters in their sleep. Something about tigers, you think. Or maybe taxes. Sleep comes like a falling stone. You dream of sand and shouting. The next morning, a wooden staff taps you awake. Spurious again. Always spurious. Training yard. Now, you shuffle into your gear. The leather straps pull at your shoulders. The helmet smells worse than it did yesterday. How is that even possible? Today's session is different. Less combat, more lecture. An older trainer, a man with a limp and one blind eye, stands before a chalkboard mounted on the wall. Yes, a chalkboard. Romans were weirdly ahead of their time, sometimes. He draws the shape of a Colosseum on it. You will not all make it there, he begins. Well, good morning to you too. He explains the different types of games. Asterisk Munera asterisk for combat. Venations for beast fights. Naumachii for full-on naval battles. Which sound insane until you remember the Romans once flooded an arena just to watch people drown. He lists the armor types. Myrmillo, Secutor, Retiarius, Thraex, Hoplomachus. You try to remember the names, but it's like trying to memorize paint colors in a storm. Each has its own weapon, shield, helmet style. Each has strengths, weaknesses, famous champions. You learn that some gladiators were specialists, trained only to fight one type. Others were switch hitters, adaptable, dangerous, unpredictable. Don't be unpredictable, the trainer growls. Be efficient. He taps the chalkboard. Efficient men survive. Flashy ones die. You nod, mostly because your neck is stiff. Tullus raises a hand. What about women? The trainer raises an eyebrow. They die too. Laughter. A few groans. But it's a fair question. Female gladiators, asterisk gladiatrices asterisk, did exist. Not many. Not often. But enough to leave behind records. Reliefs. Names. Some historians debate how widespread the practice was. Others argue it was more symbolic, part of festival spectacles, not regular combat. Either way, they trained. They fought. They bled. Just like you. Your group moves outside for sparring. This time, you're up against a Arius, the net guy, which means you're dodging rope, trident, and mockery in equal measure. He's fast, slippery. You're not, but you're learning. You sidestep, block, swing, Mississippi recover. Better, spurious calls. You can't help but smile. Until the Arius flips your legs out from under you and you land in the sand like a dropped sausage. Everyone laughs, including you. Painfully. Later, during rest period, you lie in the shade and stare up at the sky. You count clouds. You count bruises. You lose count of both. You wake with your face in straw and your back making sound it really shouldn't. Every muscle complains like an overworked senator. Loud, self-important, and impossible to ignore. But there's no sympathy in the ludus. No rest days. No, maybe I'll just do some light stretching and watch from the sidelines. You hurt, you train. You bleed, you wrap it up and keep swinging. The sun isn't even up yet, but the yard is already buzzing. Lanterns flicker. Sand crunches underfoot. Somewhere, someone's already grunting through a spear drill. You join the morning lineup, blinking at the dull, orange horizon like it personally wronged you. Today is Armor Day. Your instructor, let's call him Maximus because his real name is unpronounceable and his biceps deserve their own postal code, unrolls a canvas mat covered in equipment. You wear what we tell you, he says. No fashion complaints. The kit varies by role. If you're Mermillo, you get a heavy rectangular shield and a helmet with a wide brim. A Thraex? Curved sword and tiny shield shaped like a doorstop. The Arius gets the net and trident combo, light, fast, annoying. You? Today, you're testing Secutor gear. Large oval shield, short stabbing sword, smooth helmet with small eye holes. It's designed to counter the Arius, who'd otherwise poke your eyes out with a dinner fork from across the arena. The armor is heavier than it looks. Leather, bronze, iron, all layered, all itchy. It chafes in places you'd rather not discuss. Move, Maximus barks. You move, slowly, like a golem made of soup cans. Training is brutal. You practice shield techniques, block left, punch forward, rotate, stab. Over and over. Your sword arm burns. Your legs wobble. You sweat so much your tunic clings like a damp leaf. Now run, Maximus growls. 2 laps. Full gear. You try. Really. But by halfway around the yard, your brain's narrating your own obituary. He died doing what he hated, cardio. The second lap ends with you collapsing dramatically near the water basin. Tullus offers you a ladle of warm water. You chug it like a man lost in the desert. It tastes faintly of metal and disappointment. The rest of the morning is formation drills, marching in rows, practicing attack and retreat sequences. They don't just want you to fight. They want you to look good doing it. Gladiator matches weren't bar brawls. They were choreographed violence with enough spectacle to keep 50,000 Romans entertained. Historians still debate how real the fights were. Some think the outcomes were predetermined. Others argue the blood was always real, even if the stakes weren't always death. What's certain is this: you don't get lazy in the arena. Lazy gets you dead, or at least dramatically stabbed. Lunch break arrives like a minor miracle. The kitchen hands pass around bowls of bean porridge, chunks of bread, and, weirdly, a few figs. You're suspicious of figs now. One of yesterday's figs had a surprise inside. You try not to think about it. You eat. You sit. You stretch, carefully like a broken marionette trying yoga. And then it's theory hour. Yes, theory. Gladiators had to know their opponent types, weapons, tactics. You sit in a shaded corner with a few others while a retired Lanista lectures about crowd work. You're not just fighting, he says. You're performing. They want blood, yes, but they want drama. They want heroes. He points at Tullus. You're a Arius. Be cocky. Dance. Taunt. They'll love you. He points at you. Asterisk Secutor star. You're the hunter. Silent. Menacing. Play it like a wolf stalking prey. You nod. Try not to laugh at the idea of yourself as anything but a sweaty rectangle of shield and regret. But what if we lose? Someone asks. The old man shrugs. Then lose with style. Some matches end in death. Others don't. Sometimes the crowd chants for mercy. asterisk Mrs. Star. Other times they want blood, asterisk Ugula Star. And sometimes the Emperor himself decides, with a thumb gesture no one can quite agree on. Up, down, sideways? Historians still argue. Afternoon drills start with partner sparring. You face off against a man named Vero, tall, fast, scary, quiet. You circle. He lunges. You block, barely. You counter. He ducks. The fight ends with your shield knocked from your hands and Maximus yelling something about getting eaten by toddlers at this rate. You pick up your gear, panting. Vero nods once. Better than yesterday. That's high praise around here. Evening comes. The sky bruises into deep purples and oranges. You wash off in the bathhouse again, this time try not to fall asleep in the water. Your skin smells like olive oil, smoke, and whatever's growing in the cracks of your sandals. Dinner is lentils. You love lentils now. They mean you didn't die today. You lie on your pallet, aching but proud. Your hands are blistered. Your arms tremble. But you survived Armor Day. And tomorrow? Tomorrow's beast training. You close your eyes. Try not to dream of lions. You wake to the unmistakable sound of a growl. Low, rumble-eyed, hungry. Not your stomach, though that's a contender, but something much bigger, furrier, and less thrilled about its new living conditions. Today, you face the beasts. Technically, this part isn't even supposed to be your job. Gladiators and beast handlers were different classes. Asterisk bestiarii, asterisk and venators, trained for specific roles in games involving wild animals. But every now and then, the Lanista likes to mix things up. Cross-training, he says, makes you versatile. You suspect it's more about saving coin. So here you are, barefoot in the sand-floored car Sears, the holding pens beneath the amphitheater, staring at a wooden gate behind which something very large is breathing. Maximus shows up with a trainer's crook and a smile way too big for what's about to happen. Don't worry, he says, they fed it yesterday. Fed it what? You ask. He doesn't answer. The gate opens. A lion pads into view. It's not a full-grown male, but it's not a kitten either. About the size of a small cart. Muscles ripple under its golden coat. Its eyes are amber, unblinking. It sees you. It yawns. Enormously. You try to appear unthreatening. Also non-tasty. Maximus waves his crook. First rule, don't make eye contact. You immediately realize you've been making eye contact. Second rule, he continues, don't turn your back. That's what makes sparring tricky. You're handed a dull spear. Not a real weapon. Just something to prod the lion gently if it gets too curious. Like a pointy version of personal space. You take position beside a low wall. The lion circles. You circle. It swishes its tail. The point of this isn't to fight the lion. It's to learn how not to die near one. In shows, animals were sometimes released mid-battle for added chaos. You're training for that moment, surviving the surprise. Across the pen, a second beast appears, this time a bear. It grunts. The lion grunts back. You begin to understand why Roman audiences love this stuff. It's terrifying, but also weirdly a bit theatrical. Historians still argue whether the animals were truly wild or partially trained. Some say handlers used pheromones or hunger cues. Others believe the beasts were barely restrained and chaos was part of the fun. Fun for them, anyway. Training continues with mock scenarios. One involves a runaway boar. Another, a pack of skinny hyenas that laugh like drunk senators. You chase, dodge, occasionally prod. You're not allowed to injure the animals. They cost more than you do, Maximus reminds everyone cheerfully. There's a break for water. You sit on a rock, wiping sweat from your brow, grateful you still have all your limbs. Tullus joins you, holding a cloth over a fresh claw mark. Tiger got you? You ask. Panther, he says. Looked like a really angry pillow. Beast matches weren't always fights to the death. Sometimes they were staged hunts. Asterisk v nations asterisk, where trained men performed set-piece chases, sometimes even from horseback. Other times, condemned criminals were thrown into the arena as execution by animal. You're hoping you stay in the performer category. Back in Maximus Calls, your next partner isn't a beast, but he's wearing a beast mask, a mock venator bout. You're meant to fight him while reacting to sudden noises, gusts of smoke, or toss bits of meat to simulate animal distraction. You manage one decent hit before you slip on a clump of straw and land flat on your back. Your opponent grins. Your dinner. You groan. I'm dessert. Training ends at sundown. The sky over the amphitheater's open rim bleeds into pink and fire. You stagger back to the ludus, reeking of fur, oil, and existential dread. Dinner is fish stew tonight. You sniff it suspiciously. It smells faintly feline. You eat anyway. That night, you hear the lion again, roaring deep in its throat from somewhere beneath the earth. It echoes up through the floor like a warning. You pull your blanket tighter. Maybe tomorrow will be spears again. It's not spears. It's sandbags and buckets and a very long wooden ramp that no one seems to know how to secure properly. Today, you're working backstage, or more accurately, understage. Beneath the Colosseum lies the hypogeum, a cavernous warren of tunnels, lifts, animal cages, trapdoors, and terrifyingly creative stage mechanics that make your average modern theater look like a puppet show in a broom closet. Your job? Assist the crew with the lifts that hoist animals, props, and sometimes very confused humans up into the arena floor above. You begin your shift crouched beside a winch, winding a rope attached to a platform the size of a wagon bed. It creaks ominously. A dozen feet away, two workers guide a cage containing what you're told is an unusually placid leopard into position. You don't believe them. The lift system runs on pure manpower, pulleys, gears, and a lot of swearing. Everything's operated in precise sequences, each cue meant to match the choreography of the games above. Get it wrong, and someone gets launched into a battle at the wrong moment. Or worse, crushed. Your muscles burn with each crank. The pulley groans. The platform rises. Slowly. At one point it catches on a wooden groove and tips sideways, making the leopard yowl. Everyone yells. You brace for chaos. Somehow it settles. For now, historians still debate how standardized these systems were. Some argue there were master schematics for Roman arenas, while others believe the engineering varied wildly between cities. The Colosseum had the most elaborate layout, with over 30 lifts and countless trapdoors, many still being mapped today. You haul rope until your palms sting. Then, just as the platform reaches the top level, someone shouts, "Hold it!" You stop. The arena team above is still dealing with a prop chariot that got wedged sideways. From below, you hear the rumble of impatient feet. 20,000 people waiting to be entertained. Your stomach clenches. Not from nerves. From something worse. The air down here is hot and thick. No breeze. No light except flickering torches that barely keep the shadows in check. The walls drip moisture. Somewhere behind you, a panther coughs like it's got a grudge. At one point, you're told to crawl into a narrow crawl space to retrieve a lost amphora. You find it, but you also find a rat the size of a helmet and a spider that makes actual eye contact. You retreat in shame. Back at the lift, a grizzled tech named Gaius hands you a water skin and a piece of dried fruit. He smells like smoke and vinegar. First time in the hypogeum? He asks. You nod. He nods back. It gets worse. Great. As the next lift lowers into place, you're assigned to a decoy platform. This one will rise empty during a match to distract the crowd or an opponent. You're instructed to make sure it's visually dramatic. You pile some spears on it, along with a discarded helmet, and arrange a little fake blood on the wood using red ochre and goat's milk. You've got a real eye for theatrics, one of the handlers tells you. You're not sure if it's a compliment. By midday, you're soaked in sweat and oil. Your hair smells like smoke. Your arms feel like they've been replaced by wet laundry. But you're also weirdly proud. No one's died. No lifts have collapsed. And the panther hasn't escaped. Yet, during your short break, you lean against a marble support beam, watching through a tiny hatch as the games play out above. You see a match in progress. Two men circling with nets and tridents. The crowd roars at each feint. The sun glints off armor. For a moment, it's all strangely beautiful. And then a trapdoor opens mid-duel, and a very confused ostrich runs across the arena, flapping madly. You helped launch that ostrich. You're weirdly proud of that, too. Back to it, Gaius grunts. He hands you a bucket of sand. Your new task: help mop up animal waste between acts. The official term is arena maintenance, but no one's fooled. It's messy, it's smelly, and yes, at one point you slip. No one sees, but a passing mule looks deeply judgmental. Your final job of the day involves standing very still next to a loaded platform to ensure nothing knocks it early. You do this for 47 minutes while a centurion's son tries to juggle apples directly above you. You've never hated apples more in your life. The sun sets. The crowd thins. You're dismissed with a grunt and a nod, and you crawl back toward the dormitory half-blind from torch smoke and muscle fatigue. You lie on your cot, barely able to turn over, and whisper to yourself, "At least it wasn't the panther. Tomorrow it might be." You don't wake up. You get woken up by a metal bucket being smacked against a post. Loudly, repeatedly. Your eyelids peel open like reluctant scrolls, and you briefly forget what century it is. And the cramps in your shoulders remind you. Another day in gladiator training. You shuffle out of the dormitory like a reanimated statue, joining the long line of groggy, bruised recruits in various stages of dressing, muttering, and attempting to locate their sandals. First order of business: food. And let's manage expectations here. You're not feasting on grapes and roast boar. You're handed a hunk of barley bread so dense it could double as a weapon, and a ladle of bean stew that somehow tastes both overcooked and undercooked. No meat, not unless it's a festival week. Protein comes from lentils, beans, and the occasional egg if someone's lucky or good at bribing. You eat anyway, because you'll need every calorie. Today is Weapons Day. You file into the main yard, where the sun is already clawing over the walls like it's angry at the architecture. The air smells like sweat and sandal leather. Instructors bark orders in clipped Latin, and the clang of wooden training swords, asterisk rudis asterisk, against shields echoes like battlefield percussion. You're assigned to the spear line. A long row of trainees stands with dull-tipped practice spears, mimicking thrusts into straw-stuffed dummies shaped vaguely like humans, or possibly very fat chickens. You lunge, retract, reset. Lunge, retract, reset. Again, again, again. Your arm burns before the first break. And this is the easy part. Historians agree Roman gladiator schools, called ludi, varied in quality and cruelty. Some are brutally efficient meat grinders, others more disciplined and structured, like elite military academies. But all had one thing in common: relentless repetition. You weren't just learning to fight, you were learning to perform. Your next drill involves footwork. You practice shifting your stance, sidestepping, pivoting, always keeping your shield between you and your imaginary attacker. 1 foot wrong, and you're on the ground, possibly with a training instructor's sandal pressing firmly into your pride. Mid-morning, the wooden weapons are swapped for heavier ones made of lead. Yes, asterisk lead star. Not for actual combat, of course. Just for training. They weigh about double a real sword or trident. The idea is that if you can handle the heavier version now, the real one will feel light in the arena. In theory. In practice, you nearly dislocate your wrist and drop the thing on your own foot. Your instructor says nothing, just raises one eyebrow like a disappointed uncle. You pick it up again. By midday, your tunic is soaked through. Your knees ache. You've sweated through your sandals. But lunch is here. Another bowl of beans, this time with what might be cabbage or might be disappointment. You sit on the edge of a trough, gulping water, watching an older gladiator train with a retiarius net and trident. His net swoops and tangles with grace. Yours, in your previous practice round, just kind of flopped like a sea creature giving up. "Nice grip," a voice says. You turn. It's Marcus, the sarcastic one. The guy who insulted your shield stance yesterday, but also gave you half his fig last week. Gladiators are complicated like that. You've got a farmer's hands, he says, chewing something unidentifiable. That's good. Farmers survive longer. Calluses. You glance at your palms. They're blistered, actually, but you nod anyway. Just don't get fancy, he adds. Crowd loves fancy, but dead's dead. You return to drills. Next up is shield wall work. 4 of you line side by side, advancing in sync, shields locked. It's harder than it sounds. One guy's always too slow. Another steps forward too far. The result is a lot of shield bumping and Latin swearing. You hear a thwack and a grunt. Someone's taken a wooden gladius to the ribs. He's fine. Mostly. Probably. At one point, a trainer demonstrates the difference between a theatrical slash and a real one. He holds up a practice gladius and traces a lazy arc. This gets applause, he says, then thrusts sharply. This ends the match. You're starting to understand. Gladiators aren't just fighters. They're actors, athletes, chess pieces. And you're all learning lines in a language written in bruises. Near the end of the day, you're marched to the sand pit for solo forms. It's just you, a sword, and the empty ring. You walk through attacks and counters like a slow-motion dance. You can hear the others whispering, not in judgment, just in comparison. Who's got the flair? Who looks confident? Who's already limping? You swing. You pivot. You exhale. You forget for a moment how much everything hurts. Then your instructor throws a stone at your leg. Focus, he says. Training ends with an icy rinse from a rain barrel that smells faintly of last week's feet. You slump back toward the barracks. Your arms barely work. Your legs feel borrowed, but you're still upright, still breathing. That's a win. One of the instructors claps you on the back hard enough to shift a vertebra. Better today, he says. You nod, then promptly walk into a pole. Marcus laughs. You laugh too. Kind of. Night in the barracks doesn't mean rest. It means less yelling. You collapse onto your straw-stuffed mattress. If mattress is the right word for a fabric sack that feels like it's been stuffed with regrets and pine needles. Your tunic clings to you like a second skin. Everything aches from your ankles to your eyebrows. And there's something in your armpit that may or may not be a splinter. The other gladiators are settling in around you. Some are patching up scrapes with vinegar-soaked cloths. Others are cracking jokes about trainer's breath or comparing blister counts. A few are just staring at the ceiling like philosophers of suffering. You roll onto your side and wince. Outside the barracks, the hum of evening settles over the ludus. You hear the scuff of sandals, the bark of a guard dog, the faint creak of a gate. And in the distance, barely audible, the cheers of a distant arena finishing its games. Tonight, someone else fought. Maybe someone else died. Tomorrow might be your turn. The man on the bunk above you snores. Loudly. It sounds like he's gargling sand. You wonder, for the 10th time, how you ended up here. Most gladiators weren't volunteers. Some were slaves, purchased specifically for the arena. Others were criminals, sentenced to fight as punishment. A few were octorati, free citizens who sold themselves into the games for money, fame, or sheer desperation. That last group gets talked about the most, but they were rare. You? Let's just say your career path wasn't self-chosen. Historians still debate the percentage of volunteer fighters versus forced ones. Roman propaganda liked to show brave, willing warriors, but real records suggest the majority were trained, owned, and very much not there by choice. Someone to your left starts humming a tune. A soldier's march song, but slower. Sleepier. Half a lullaby, half a war cry. You hum along. It helps. A guard walks past the open door, torch flickering. You don't flinch anymore. You've learned when to stay still and when to move. When to keep your mouth shut. When to nod and say yes, trainer. Your first day here, you mouthed off about a missing sandal. You still can't feel your left earlobe properly. There's talk of upcoming matches. Some veterans whisper about the schedule. Who's slated to fight? Which Munera will be private? Which will be public? You're not on the list yet, but it's only a matter of time. And here's the cruel irony. You're hoping to be put on the list. Because if you're not fighting, you're not winning. And if you're not winning, you're not earning your freedom. Not that it happens often. Freedom is like a dangling carrot. Technically possible, theoretically visible, but almost no one gets it. It takes dozens of wins, public favor, and a rich sponsor willing to grant the Rudis, that little wooden sword that says you're done. You haven't even earned a real sword yet. Someone nearby starts telling a story about a fellow trainee who ran during his first fight. Bolted across the sand, tossed his shield, tripped over his own foot, and got dragged back by the arena staff like a disobedient dog. "Still here," says the storyteller, chuckling. Trainer makes him clean the latrines with a stick. A few others laugh. You don't. You remember the look on that guy's face when he came back. Blank. Drained. Like someone had scooped the fear out of him and replaced it with fog. You roll onto your back again. Stare up at the beams. Someone's carved tally marks into the wood. 1, 2, 3, 29. Maybe wins. Maybe days. Maybe something darker. Your fingers twitch. Not from pain this time, but from the ghost memory of sword hilt. Even if you haven't held one in combat yet, your body is already dreaming of it. One of the older fighters, Juno, a tall Gaul with a broken nose and a voice like gravel, leans over from his bunk. "You sleep with your fists clenched," he says softly. You blink. "Do I?" He nods. Means you're still fighting. Then he turns over and is snoring a minute later. You lie there in the dark, fists unclenching. The barracks smells like sweat, dust, and hope gone stale. Someone near the door coughs. A deep, wet sound. You don't know their name. You're not sure you want to. Names mean attachment. Attachment means grief. Grief means distraction. And distraction gets you killed. You close your eyes. A mosquito buzzes near your ear. You swat lazily. Another day survived. Not exactly lived, but survived. That counts. For now. The morning horn doesn't so much wake you as it drags you out of the half-sleep you weren't enjoying anyway. You sit up, joints popping like overused hinges. Your mouth tastes like straw and yesterday's fear. Someone's already moving near the wash basin, splashing cold water onto their face with the grim energy of someone preparing to be yelled at again. You join them. The water is sharp and metallic. It helps barely. Today's on the schedule. You've heard whispers. Your name's been scrawled on the slate board outside the Lanista's office. White chalk on dark wood. Your fate in smudged letters. You're due for weapons drill. Not practice with wooden swords, but real ones. The transition moment. No more padding. No more blunted tips. Just sharpened steel and a partner who may or may not like you. The armamentarium, the weapons hall, is already alive when you arrive. Wooden racks brim with helmets, greaves, shields, and gladii. Some are chipped, others gleam. Each one smells like iron, leather, and old blood. You step forward and wait to be assigned. Your trainer doesn't say much, just tosses you a scutum, a large, curved rectangular shield nearly as tall as your torso, and a short sword, heavier than you expected. You stumble slightly. "Don't drop it," he growls. "That sword costs more than you." You nod. Historians still argue whether all gladiators were outfitted equally or if richer patrons equipped their favorites better. Evidence shows some fighters had customized armor, engraved greaves, distinctive helms. Others wore whatever was available. You're definitely in the whatever's available category. Your helmet doesn't quite fit, and one of your sandals is tied with a shoelace someone braided from horsehair. In the training yard, sand crunches beneath your feet. Sunlight spills over the stone walls. You're paired with a broad-shouldered Thracian named Crassus. He's got a grin that suggests he enjoys his job a little too much. "You're new," he says. You nod. "Don't die," he adds helpfully, and then he lunges. No countdown, no warning, just a blur of bronze and muscle. You raise your shield, barely in time, the edge of his blade thudding against the wood. Your arm jolts. You stagger back. He's already circling again. Welcome to real weapons training. You manage to parry his second strike, clumsily, but it counts. Crassus nods in approval, then kicks sand in your face. You blink, cough, step wrong, and your sword is on the ground. He doesn't attack, just chuckles, taps your helmet with the flat of his blade, and walks away. You retrieve your sword, cheeks burning under the iron. All around you, pairs spar, clash, and grunt. One man takes a blow to the ribs and folds like a tunic. Another is limping, his leg wrapped in cloth from yesterday's mishap. You realize there's no such thing as light injury here. Everything hurts. Everything matters. Reset. Your trainer barks. Again, you return to position, fingers already sore. The handle of your gladius digs into your palm. You glance up. Crassus is waiting. You try to focus. Feet steady. Arm up. Elbow tucked. The forms they drilled into you for weeks, now being tested. The clash happens again and again. Hours blur into sweat and gritted teeth. Breaks are rare. Water is rationed. There's no shade. You practice falling because, yes, there's a right way to fall. Roll your shoulder. Don't land on the sword. Don't flash your neck to the crowd if this happens in a real match. And always, always asterisk, get back up faster than your opponent expects. Crassus gets bored eventually and wanders off to spar someone harder. You end up against a nervous recruit who apologizes every time he swings. Honestly, it's a relief. But the trainers notice. You're reassigned. Your new partner? A retiarius in training, net and trident. No shield, no helmet, just speed and chaos. You're supposed to be the secutor now, the classic enemy of the net fighter, which means you lumber forward, short sword in hand, try to pin him down before you're tangled and skewered. You fail. Twice. The third time, you manage to slap his net aside and tap his arm with your blade. The trainer grunts approval. Progress. Then you get tripped, flat on your back, sun blinding you. And suddenly you understand why the arena sand is always reddish, because every inch of it has tasted blood. You drag yourself up. By afternoon, your muscles are trembling. The wooden bench near the wall looks like a throne. You drop onto it. Someone hands you a slice of salted cheese and a hunk of dry bread. You chew slowly, try not to lock eyes with the other fighters, because there's a weird intimacy to it. Eating next to someone you might face in the arena someday. Or worse, might lose to. And that's the quiet truth of this place. Every friend is a future enemy. Every chuckle could end in sore point. The only loyalty you're allowed is to survival. You finish your bread, take a long sip of lukewarm water. Then you wipe your face, square your shoulders, and return to the yard. Because training isn't over. And tomorrow, they say, there's an inspection. You don't know what that means yet, but you're pretty sure you won't like it. You wake up to the sound of clanging. Not the usual clatter of armor or the barked orders of trainers, but the deliberate, rhythmic hammering of metal on metal. Inspection day. You're not entirely sure what that means, but the others are already moving with extra urgency. Sandals slap against stone. Hair is being oiled. Tunics smoothed. A few men are polishing their helmets like they're going to meet the emperor. One guy even shaves badly with a piece of sharpened bronze. Turns out, inspection day is less about combat readiness and more about visual appeal. The Lanista, your trainer-manager-master hybrid, wants everyone looking like proper investments. Because today, potential sponsors are coming. You get handed a tunic that doesn't stink. It's a little too tight in the shoulders, and there's a suspicious stain on the hem, but by your new standards, it's formal wear. The other fighters are lined up in the courtyard when you get there, each holding their weapon, posture straight, eyes forward. You mimic the stance, even though your thigh is still throbbing from yesterday's net fight. A hush falls. Someone important has arrived. He doesn't look like much, short, pink-cheeked, with a toga that probably cost more than a villa roof. 2 rings on every finger. He walks the line slowly, inspecting each of you like ripe fruit at a market stall. When he gets to you, he pauses. What's this one? New. Your Lanista says. Shoulders too narrow. Legs not bad. Face serviceable. You stare straight ahead. You don't blink. The man moves on. You exhale. One historian described these sponsor visits as auction day in a bloodier market. There's debate about how often private citizens could sponsor gladiators directly. Some say it was only the elite. Others claim even local officials, merchants, or bored aristocrats could rent out fighters like party entertainment. Regardless, the message is clear. You are inventory. And not top-shelf inventory either. A murmur runs down the line. Another important figure has entered. This one's taller, older, wearing a cape lined in dark purple. That's high-ranking. Possibly a senator, or someone trying very hard to look like one. He doesn't walk the line. He gestures. 2 of your fellow fighters are pulled aside immediately. A retiarius and a secutor. Match pairing, maybe? Tomorrow's event. Your Lanista whispers later. Special showing. Trial bouts. You glance at the chosen fighters. One looks proud. The other looks like he just remembered a dentist appointment that doesn't exist. Later that afternoon, a slave comes around with a brush and a pot of oil. Everyone's shoulders and arms are given a light sheen, enough to highlight muscle, not too much to cause slippage. You now smell like lemon and old olives. Not the worst. You're marched into the arena, not for a fight, but for display. The stands are mostly empty, save for a few rich-looking folks and their bored children. You line up in formation, weapons at your side, try not to squint in the sun. Raise your gladius, comes the bark. You raise it. A few polite claps. One of the kids throws a date pit. You keep your face still. And then one of the men in the stand speaks up. He gestures to you and two others. Those three. I want them next week. Just like that. You've been selected. You don't know if it's good or bad. Later, in the dimness of the barracks, the chosen fighters exchange glances. No one speaks for a while. Someone finally breaks the silence. Maybe it's a warm-up fight. Maybe it's a trial match, someone else adds. You nod slowly. Or maybe it's a test of loyalty, of spectacle, of who looks better bleeding under torchlight. That night, your dinner's better. Slightly. A bowl of lentils with something resembling meat. You're not fooled, but you eat it. Afterward, one of the older gladiators sidles up beside you. You got picked, he says. You nod. Just remember, if they tell you to lose, lose pretty. If they tell you to win, don't gloat. And if they don't tell you anything, he doesn't finish. You understand. The next morning, you're sent to the medicus, the camp physician. Not because you're sick, but because sponsors like their fighters to be intact. He inspects your teeth, your knees, checks your eyes by pulling your eyelids apart with his thumb. Not the worst I've seen, he mutters, then smears a foul-smelling balm on your elbow. Fun fact, Roman medics used everything from vinegar to spider webs in their treatments. This one seems to favor garlic and crushed mint. You smell like an herbal stew by the time he's done. Back at the training yard, you're handed a heavier shield. A practice run with your new weapon set. Because tomorrow, you're stepping into a real ring. Not the big one, not the Colosseum, but a smaller arena just outside the city walls. Private, exclusive, deadly. You practice footwork for 2 hours straight, until the soles of your feet feel like hammered leather. You don't speak. You barely think. You just train, and try not to wonder what kind of audience awaits you. The sun rises sluggishly, casting a reddish haze over the training grounds. Today's the day. You're going to fight in a private arena for a hand-picked audience of people with enough coin to rent blood for breakfast. Your stomach feels like it's been twisted into a gladiator's knot. The other two who were chosen, one with a jagged scar across his cheek, the other younger but quicker, don't speak either. There's a shared stillness, like the air before a thunderstorm. You eat sparingly, just a few bites of flatbread and watered wine. Anything more, and it might come back up at the worst possible moment. Your lanista enters the barracks, eyes scanning each of you like a sculptor checking his statues for cracks. You'll be driven to the villa, he says simply. No talking to the staff. No requests. No whining. Nice pep talk. You climb into a wooden cart with slatted sides. Not chained, but it still feels like a cage. The cart rattles out of the gates and into the early morning streets. Rome yawns around you, vendors setting up, bakers hauling flour, kids chasing each other between pillars. No one looks twice at the cart full of gladiators. It's a normal part of life. At the villa, you're led through manicured gardens that smell like laurel and crushed citrus. You pass marble fountains, a pair of peacocks, and a statue of Minerva that somehow looks smug. This isn't the Colosseum. This is private sport for private eyes. The arena is sunken into the ground, ringed with polished stone benches. It's smaller than your training yard, but surrounded by columns painted red and gold. A canopy shades the audience. Dozens of well-dressed men and women sipping wine or peeling figs. You catch snatches of conversation, land disputes, politics, gossip about someone's mistress. You and the other two fighters are taken to a curtained side room, a makeshift staging area. It smells like sweat, sandalwood, and nerves. A boy no older than 12 hands you your equipment. It's not your usual gear. Instead of your blunt-edged training gladius, you're handed a real one. Sharpened, balanced, heavy in a different way. Real. No mistaking it now. Your shield is lighter, decorative, even. Meant to impress, not defend. Which tells you one thing. They didn't bring you here to win. They brought you here to entertain. You glance at your fellow fighters. The scarred man has painted a red streak beneath his eye. War paint? Tradition? Who knows? The younger one flexes his fingers over and over like he's trying to squeeze the fear out of them. A handler appears. Trial format, he says quickly. Short rounds. Show agility. No killing blows. You nod, then pause. But not killing blows either, he adds, already walking off. You close your eyes. Excellent. Out you go. Into the ring. The sun stabs through the canopy, warm against your bare shoulders. The crowd hushes. You step into the sand, feel it shift under your feet, and draw your sword. The first bout is you versus the younger fighter. A warm-up. He charges like he's trying to end it fast. You sidestep. He overcorrects. You jab. Not hard, but enough to leave a mark on his thigh. The audience gasps. Someone claps. He lunges again, but this time you meet him square. Steel hits shield with a dull clang. You shove him back and raise your blade, slowly, dramatically. Theater. He throws his arms wide and lets out a mock roar. They laugh. You both breathe. He grins. He gets it. Round two is the scarred veteran. He's slower, but more dangerous. You circle each other, blades twitching. He goes low. You block. He fakes a stumble, then comes in hard. You almost fall for it. The crowd is silent, captivated. Your sword slashes his arm. Not deep, but red. Real blood. That's enough. He steps back, lifts both arms, and shrugs like, what can you do? More laughter. This is less about victory, more about vibes. Historians still argue whether these private matches were training, entertainment, or subtle political theater. Some believe they helped aristocrats size up potential investments. Others think they were just fancy versions of betting rings, dressed up in fine linen and scented oils. You don't have the luxury of speculating. You just survive the last bout. All three of you in the match standing, barely bruised, lightly bloodied, and still breathing. The audience applauds. Some even rise. A woman throws a flower into the ring. You don't catch it, but it lands near your foot. You leave it there. Back in the staging room, the boy brings a bowl of water and a strip of cloth. You wipe down quietly. Your hand shakes once, then steadies. You feel, not victorious, but intact. You did well, the Lanista says, appearing in the doorway. You wait. That senator liked your footwork, he adds. Might sponsor you for the spring games. Games, not skirmishes, not sparring matches. Real arena, real crowds, real chance of death. You nod. You don't say thank you. That feels like jinxing it. The cart ride back is silent. The city is louder now, full of life. Full of people who didn't just swing a sword for entertainment. Your tunic sticks to your back. Your sword arm aches. But your heart, somehow, feels calm. You're not proud. You're not excited. But you are for now. The barracks door creaks, open well before dawn. Someone's torch sputters in the hallway. You wake to the smell of damp straw, mildew, and the iron tang of sweat clinging to linen. Another day begins, though the word day hardly means anything anymore. There are only drills, meals, bruises, and the brief flicker of candlelight before sleep. You roll out of your cot, more a wooden slab with fabric than a bed, and stretch your shoulders. They pop like dry branches. The fights yesterday still echo in your muscles. That senator's praise earned you some status, but status is as fragile as your ribs after a bad block. You dress quickly. Tunic, belt, sandals. The fabric stiff with old oil. No one here smells good. Outside, the training ground is already stirring. The sky is bruised gray. A few figures move through shadow, weapons glinting in the half-light. The sand underfoot is cold and clumps beneath your soles. You take your place in line. Today is formation sparring. Two lines of fighters face off, paired in height and strength. You square up against a man nicknamed the Furnace. Why? Because he breathes like a forge and swings like a smith who's angry at metal. His real name is Lucius, and you're not sure if he likes you or not. Doesn't matter. He lunges. You block, twist, return. The sparring blades clack and skid, wooden for now, but still dangerous. He shouts something in Gaulish. You don't speak it, but based on tone, it's not good morning. You adjust your stance. Feet wide. Shield up. Breathe. The match ends when your instructor claps twice. Not when someone wins. Not when someone falls. Just whenever he feels like it. Next partner. The morning goes on like that. Sun climbing. Body slamming. Arms shaking. There's a moment where your vision blurs from exhaustion, and you wonder if this is what being truly alive feels like, or just close enough to death to confuse the two. Later, back in shade, you collapse onto a bench. Someone tosses you a skin of water. You drink too fast and choke. A familiar voice laughs. It's the furnace. You parry better than you drink, he says, sitting beside you. Good thing you're not a fish. You grunt something that might be a laugh. Maybe friendship. Hard to say. A slave boy brings trays of lentils and barley bread. You eat. Mechanically. The lentils taste like dust. The bread is chewy enough to fight back. You don't complain. One of the newer recruits, no more than 17, asks the question no one likes hearing out loud. How many matches before you're free? Silence. Then someone replies, depends how loud the crowd claps. That's the truth. Technically, yes, some gladiators earned freedom after enough victories. They were awarded a rudis, a wooden sword, symbol of release. But the number was never guaranteed, and neither was survival. Historians still argue whether most gladiators had realistic chances of freedom. Some records show dozens did. Others suggest it was like winning the lottery, possible but vanishingly rare. What's certain is this: you don't fight for glory. You fight to keep your name on the roster instead of a grave tablet. The rest of the afternoon is weapon drills. You're handed a net and trident today, a new combination. You're training as a retiarius, a style meant to be quick, strategic, evasive. Your opponent? A secutor. He's got a heavy helmet with tiny eye holes and a rounded shield, meant to counter your speed. The matchup is deliberate. The crowd loves contrast. The net is harder than it looks. It tangles in your arms, flies wide when you throw. Miss once, and you're wide open. But when it lands, you snag his ankle. Yank. He stumbles. You stab. Not the killing kind, just enough to press metal to his chest. The instructor nods. Again. You do it 20 more times. By evening, your hands blister and your thighs tremble. You soak your feet in a basin of cold water that someone mercifully left behind. No one speaks. Even the furnace is quiet now, chewing bread slowly like each bite needs thought. You hear someone praying softly in the bunk room, probably to Nemesis, the goddess of balance and retribution, or to Fortuna. You're not picky about which goddess favors you, as long as one of them's listening. You lie down, back flat, arms out, staring at the wooden beams above. You've made it through another training day. Not victorious, not broken, just here. The day of the match arrives with a chill in the air and a strange quiet in the barracks. No shouting, no jokes, just the creak of armor straps and the low rustle of linen being wrapped. You sit on the edge of your cot, staring at your gladius. The blade is dull, not from lack of sharpness, but from overuse. It's been cleaned, polished, but the dings are there, like scars. You're not nervous exactly, or maybe you are, but the feeling is buried so deep it just comes out as silence. A trainer appears at the doorway, eyes scanning the room like a census taker who's done this too many times. He calls 5 names. Yours is one of them. You stand. They bring you into the armory, if you can call it that. A room lined with hooks and crates, reeking of sweat, iron, and old laurel oil. There are rows of helmets, shields, tridents, nets, greaves. You know the drill. You gear up, slowly, one piece at a time. You're fighting as a Murmillo today. Heavy helmet, short sword, broad rectangular shield. Classic. Your opponent? A Thalassomachus, a rare class. He fights like a sea raider, with curved blades and a stylized fish crest on his helm. Flashy. Dangerous. Probably trained for showmanship. The attendants rub olive oil into your shoulders. They say it helps you move better. Mostly, it makes you feel like a roast ready for the spit. The horn sound, that deep, hollow call that rolls over the stone and sand of the Colosseum like thunder in a tunnel. You walk the corridor, sandaled feet scraping on stone. It's darker than you remember. The archway ahead is blinding. You emerge into sunlight and sound. Tens of thousands of voices hit you at once. This is not a training ground. This is theater. The arena is wide, raked with sand, ringed by white marble and blood-red banners. You feel smaller than you ever have. Smaller even than on your first day in chains. The announcer calls your names, not your real ones, of course. Your Gaius the Bold. He's the sea demon. This is mythology. And you're the monster, or the hero, or the corpse waiting to be created. You take your stance. The crowd grows quiet. The judge, a man in a purple-trimmed toga, probably drunk, drops a white cloth. It begins. He charges first, curved blade flashing like a silver hook. You block. Barely. The impact jars your wrist. You pivot, shield raised. Jab with your gladius. Miss. He circles. The sand is dry and loose today. Bad for footing. Good for drama. He swipes again, this time your leg. You feel the sting through the greave. Not deep, but enough to wake you up. You exhale. Tighten your grip. Your next strike catches his side. Just a graze, but the crowd roars. Blood equals approval. Pain equals entertainment. You smile grimly, because somehow you're winning. Not the match. The attention. Historians still argue whether most matches were truly to the death. Some claim many fights were stopped before fatal wounds. Others argue that if the crowd didn't care for mercy, the arena didn't either. What is agreed upon? Gladiators didn't fight every day. But when they did, every move could be your last. He lunges. You duck. Drive your shield forward. He stumbles. You knock his weapon from his hand. Silence. He's kneeling now, breathing hard. The sun catches the blood on his helmet. You raise your sword. And wait. The judge raises his hand. The crowd responds. Thumbs are flat. Not up. Not down. Mercy. Maybe. You lower your blade. He nods. They call the match. Not a kill. Not a loss. Just a draw, maybe? Or a good show. You stagger back to the corridor, still gripping your sword. Blood crusts on your tunic. Sweat stings your eyes. You've survived, which is the only victory that counts. In the prep room, a medic dabs your cuts with wine and chews garlic like it's a ritual. Someone offers you a figure. It tastes like heaven. A few hours later, you're in the stands again, watching others fight. Some better, some worse. You see one man fall and not rise. You recognize the look on the face of the victor. Relief, not triumph. You've seen it in your own reflection. Back in the barracks, they give you wine. Not much, but more than usual. You drink it slowly, the sweet acidity cutting through the metal in your mouth. Someone plays a lyre. Not well, but soft enough to soothe. You lie back, arms behind your head. You're still here, still breathing, still whole. For now. Morning comes with a sour sky and the flat gray light of a Rome that doesn't care whether you lived or died yesterday. You wake stiff, every joint a private protest. Even your dreams are sore. No fanfare greets the returning champions. You're just another man in a cot. Try not to groan when you sit up. They say gladiators were celebrated, that they were celebrities, that the crowd adored them. But what they don't mention is what happens when the crowd forgets. Or when the crowd moves on to someone younger, stronger, with a sharper swing and better hair. Your name might be etched in betting tablets and scratched on walls with crude charcoal portraits. But those don't feed you. They don't protect your neck when it's your turn again. They certainly don't soften the next training blade aimed at your ribs. You eat. Gruel again. Slightly sweet today, which either means someone's feeling generous, or the honey jar cracked and no one noticed. You eat anyway. You always eat. After breakfast, it's drills. The lanista isn't in the mood for coddling, so it's full contact sparring in the yard. You face off against a reedy Arius, net and trident, and instantly regret not limping harder to fake an injury. He's fast. You're tired, and your left knee still makes a sound like a door hinge when you pivot. The net catches your ankle. You swear, loudly. He laughs. Then he gets you in the chest with the blunt tip of the trident. Not hard, but hard enough to knock the wind out of your lungs and the dignity out of your soul. You collapse, just for a moment, just enough to breathe. The lanista mutters something about soft senator's pets. You'll remember that the next time he asks you to clean his sandals. After drills, there's the usual routine, oil, clean, inspect gear, fetch water. If you're lucky, you'll be assigned kitchen duty instead of latrine scrub. If you're really lucky, you'll hear news that someone placed a large bet on you for the next match. That kind of rumor means nothing and everything. If the bettors have faith, maybe you'll be matched well. Maybe your opponent will be nervous. Maybe you'll have a reason to fight, just a little harder. But bets are slippery things. Fickle, like crowds, like freedom. Historians still argue whether most gladiators truly had a chance at manumission, freedom. Some earned it after years of service, others through exceptional valor. But there are records of free gladiators being re-enlisted, recaptured, or simply never leaving the Ludus at all. What's a wooden sword worth? Anyway, if the world outside still sees you as a killer. You've seen a rudis once. A wooden training sword awarded to a man who survived enough fights to earn his release. It was plain, unassuming, but the way the other fighters looked at it, like it was made of gold and air and promises. Not many get there. You might not either. But today you're alive. And tonight, you'll be paraded again. Not into the arena, but around the Ludus, where the recruits watch you with half fear and half hope. Like you've been somewhere they might never reach. You nod to them. It costs nothing. Later, the healer tends your bruises with something that smells like vinegar and wet laurel. She doesn't speak, just hums. Outside, the sun bleeds orange over the rooftops. You climb the outer steps of the compound and sit there, hidden by shadows, just long enough to watch a flock of birds scatter into the evening. Rome sprawls before you, vast, loud, indifferent. It doesn't know your name, but for now, you know hers. And maybe, for now, that's enough. Because you made it through another day, another match, another moment of not being a corpse beneath the sand. And somewhere below, in the shadowed barracks, another new recruit coughs in his sleep and dreams of being you. You lie down slowly, every bone easing into the rough comfort of a straw-stuffed mattress. The torches have burned low now, casting long shadows that flicker across the beams. Someone nearby snores gently, the rhythm soft and almost comforting. The world outside the barracks has gone quiet. No clanging armor, no shouting trainers, no distant cries from the Colosseum. Just the soft hum of night, owls calling from temple roofs, a breeze curling past the stone arches, and the faint shuffle of sandals as a night guard makes his rounds. Your hands are still stained faintly with oil. Your shoulders ache, but it's a familiar ache now. The kind that reminds you, you're still here, still breathing, still whole. For a moment, you let yourself drift. You picture the arena not as a place of fear, but as a stage. The crowd fades, the weapons vanish, and it's just sand, wind, and silence. You survived, and maybe tomorrow you will again. So rest now. Let the world fall away. Let the training yard dissolve into soft darkness. Let the wooden sword become a dream, and the roar of the crowd just a distant whisper. You've earned it. Sleep deeply, fighter. The sun will wait. Sweet dreams.